tariffs hitting consumers. Many companies are increasing prices on goods ranging from soda to recreational vehicles to beer. And that's now going to cost more, of course, to produce as a result of recent aluminum and steel tariffs. BMW, following Tesla, is one of the companies announcing it's going to raise prices of its U.S.-made SUVs in China to counteract the effects of the tariffs. Here now is Hugo Gurdon, Washington Examiner editorial director. Hugo, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl.
So do you think that these price increases are going to basically turn American voters off to the president's, message of renegotiating all of these agreements?
Well, it's a big risk. Raising tariffs is essentially like raising taxes on Americans. It also kills jobs. If you raise tariffs, it's going on steel and aluminum. It's going to push up the price of soda cans, so you pay more for your soda. It's going to push up more for the price of nails. It's going to push up the price of houses. It's a very high-risk strategy. But just recently, we've also been seeing signs from some notable economic writers, Donald Luskin, in the Wall Street Journal, Mark Thiessen, who's at the American Enterprise Institute, writing in the Washington Post, suggesting that these tariffs are having their effect on China. Last week, we saw a deal with the European Union, or the beginnings of a deal, which is going to open up their markets. And at the same time, the Europeans agreed to buy more soybeans. Now, that counteracts China, which is the biggest importer of American soybeans. So there are signs that what Donald Trump is doing is putting the squeeze on China. And the point that you made earlier, Adam, about, how long can people stand the pain of this is the big question. Do more people turn against the president because they themselves are losing their jobs, or does it have the impact on China?
Well, can I ask you a question about China? Sure. Because, the squeeze is on China, and I know we're going to get into that. But the Chinese, and this is an extreme statement, but the Chinese killed their own people, Tiananmen, years ago. So the government in China, the 80 million people who are members of the Communist Party and the Politburo, is the squeeze on them. I realize 600 million in the middle class in China might have pressure, but the Chinese government shows a willingness to ignore their own people.
Well, certainly. I think one, it doesn't expect the Chinese Politburo and the party to care very much about the people. But the Chinese stock market has lost 25% in the first half of this year. The yuan, its currency, has had a really terrible June, and it looks like it's having a really terrible July as well. What they really fear for an emerging market, even though it's the second biggest in the world, is a flight of capital. So, they don't want to see their further tanking in their stock market. They really are going to feel the pressure from these
Well,
moves.
they've got to come to the table, then, when it comes to intellectual property. And the vice president talked about that with Maria, that we are very obviously aware that this sharing of technology, this forced sharing of technology between U.S. companies and China, you want to do a deal in China, you got to open up your IP. That's the big problem.
Exactly.
I want to stay with trade, but kind of switch gears to something else, because South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures that the U.S. may pull out of the World Trade Organization unless China starts playing by the rules. Listen.
Let's go to zero as soon as we can, get rid of these subsidies, unite and reform the WTO, and tell China, if you want to stay in the WTO, we're going to have new rules you have to abide by. Either kick them out or we get out, one of the two, because the WTO is not working.
All right, so standing tough on China, is that the unifying message, do you think, for the Republicans in the midterms?
Well, I don't know how much trade issues are going to affect the midterms. I think people will feel that if their pocketbooks feel good, then they're going to be happy. If they don't, then they're not going to be. But I do think that, I think it's very unlikely that the United States is going to pull out of the WTO. I think that's a very long-term process. But Lindsey Graham is right. China has been unfair to the United States in its trade policies. President Trump is putting a lot of pressure on them, and, there are signs that they might crack. I don't think that the WTO process is quick enough.
Lee, what do you make of that? Because you're constantly doing polling of Americans. What do you make of that?
I am consistently surprised by how much people support the president on these issues, even knowing that they might hurt them in the short term or even the long term. We don't know how long this is going to go. When we talk about China, and Adam, you mentioned this, they are a long game. They don't have midterms. They don't have four-year elections. They have this long-term view on the world that we simply can't understand. But when I talk to the American voters, when I talk to Republican voters, and even a large number of independents, they're out there saying, you know what, it's about about time that we have a politician who is willing to get up there and stand up for us first, not give us platitudes, do what he says, and say, we're going to put our needs first, and we're willing to take some short-term pain. And I never would have believed that this was going to happen. When I'm looking at these polling numbers and I'm looking consistently, people are saying, I'm willing to stick this out. And I understand, Adam, your point about the farmers. They're taking it on the chin. And I know a lot of them are really, really upset right now. At the same time, the president is going out there and offering them aid packages, and we're talking about what's happening. You know, they're seeing deals happen in the EU. I think people are still optimistic. And when you think about how this is almost like opposite of any other political movement that we've seen before, where people are willing to say, you know what, I get it. It's going to be harder for me, but it's worth it.
It's upended. Hugo, I want to ask you about something else. I want to move on to another interview of Maria's. Social media censorship, a big issue. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes was on Sunday Morning Futures with her yesterday. He's considering legal action to deal with Twitter's shadow banning of conservative voices. Listen to this.
You had a report that came out where, in fact, there were 4 people in the House of Representatives and the only 4 politicians in the country, the elected officials that were being, quote unquote, well, they don't call it shadow banning, but effectively we were getting caught up in some type of trap to where people couldn't see our Twitter feed. That was Mr. Gates, Mr. Meadows, Mr. Jordan, and myself. So I don't know what Twitter's up to. It sure looks to me like they're censoring people, and they ought to stop it. And we're looking at any legal remedies that we can go through.
Hugo, doesn't this reinforce the idea that there's bias against conservative voices?
Yeah, I think it does. I don't know that there are legal remedies that the Congress can take, although they're talking about looking, referring this to the FEC. So, maybe there's some kind of case that you can make that this is an in-kind contribution to Democrats or some such thing. But these are private companies and they're allowed to be politically biased. But, conservatives over the past 6 months have felt themselves not being presented on social media nearly as much as they were. People have lost traffic, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And Erin, you could comment on that. I mean, you're seeing the same thing with...
Absolutely. I just had an experience recently with Candace Owens. I was liking various Twitter comments that she had made, and all of the likes were disappearing. And when you try to contact these social media platforms about this, you get absolute radio silence. And people often speak about Facebook only. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
What people fail to understand, if I'm not correct here, is that Instagram is also owned by Facebook. So this is truly pervasive across all of our social media platforms. What do we do? What is the government to do? What are consumers to do?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that's really interesting about this is that social media they're unlike phone companies in that the phone companies don't get blamed for what is said on the phone. But social media they've decided that they're going to police their content. So, they're saying we're going to cut out fake news, we're going to do sort of online hygiene, etc. As soon as you start trying to police, then you have to take responsibility for it. And if people see bias in the way that you're policing it, then they're going to get terribly upset.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest concerns here, though, is what they label as hate language.
Right.
And saying that a lot of conservative language is hate language. And I've seen posts that get censored.
Ask Diamond and Silk. Ask Diamond and Silk about how they feel about censorship with regards to Facebook. And they actually are winning their argument in Washington, of all places. Hugo, it's great to see you.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to hear that lovely British accent in the morning. Wakes me up. Hugo, thank you.